Real quick before the battle starts, I do want to give a big thank you and shout out to Turkey for playing this game pretty late his time. We had a lot of trouble scheduling this game because we are on like opposite schedules, and I was traveling last weekend, so we didn't get to play during both of our off time. So it's like 11:30 when we're playing this battle for his time on a school night. So thanks for all your flexibility, and hope you guys enjoy the video. Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and I'm coming to you guys with my battle for week 11 of UBC. We are going up against Turkey, coach of Toronto Luxrays. This is after the battle, and we're going to hop into the replay in just a moment, but I do want to show you guys the matchup and my team. He does have on his squad Mew, Tapu Fini, Infernape, Landorus, Mega Pidgeot, Registeel, Delmice, Licky Licky, Dragalge, Bisharp, and Marshtomp. And so he has some setup threats that I'm kind of scared of, particularly Mew, but also Infernape can potentially be scary. If he's packing a set with like Mach Punch, it could be really hard for me to deal with. Calm Mind Finny is scary. Set up Landorus with Rock Polish is really scary. So I did the best I could to build a team for all of his threats, but it was kind of hard to do. Let's just hop on into it, and I'll show you guys, and then we'll go straight to the replay. I do have my Sylveon here. It's a basically max special attack variant with Pixie Plate, Hyper Voice, Hidden Power Fighting, Wish Baton Pass. He doesn't really have good fairy resist on his team beside Registeel, and so I can pretty much spam Hyper Voice and heal up a lot of my walls with Wish. Put a little bit of speed in here in case he tries to speed creep. We do have a Choice Scarf Lando. I originally had this as Flying EMZ with Stealth Rock, but I wanted something that could revenge kill most of his setup threats, and that's also why I wanted Explosion, just because that's the best way for me to do massive damage to like the Mew and the Landorus and the Tapu Fini and things like that, rather than trying to pack coverage for all of them. We do outspeed Bisharp with this set, and we have this much defensive investment in order to take 2 Flare Blitzes from a Life Orb Infernape. We have a Mega Blastoise with some mixed investment here, Scarred, Dark Pulse, Aura Sphere, Rapid Spin. He doesn't have great ways of beating this thing on his team, and this is just really bulky. So like it takes hits from pretty much everything, and can do good damage back with almost its entire moveset. It's just walled by Tapu Fini, which is sad. But otherwise, this is here to apply pressure to Mew, Licky Licky, Marshtomp, Bisharp, lots of things like that. It's there to get spins off because I beat most of his Stealth Rockers, and just beats Delmice depending upon what sort of spread he is, because Dark Pulse should 2-shot. Have an Assault Vest Goodra. This is the main answer for Pidgeot, because I don't have great switch-ins for it otherwise, and this can take hits from a lot of the other things on his team. Put some defense investment in this as well, so it can switch in on Marshtomp, switch in on Delmice if needed, and things like that. We have a Fizdef Victini with definitely a weird spread. Blue Flare, Psyshock, Energy Ball, and Toxic. This is my main Infernape check, and he could be packing EQ to hit this thing, but it's like a Scarf EQ barely does like 35% to me, and Rocky Helmet lets us get chip damage off on him every time he goes for U-turn. I really wish I had rocks to abuse something like a Scarf Infernape, but I can't afford that this week. But otherwise, that's kind of what this is here for. It does decent damage to stuff like Delmice, Marshtomp, etc. And then last but not least, we've got a pretty standard looking Weavile, Knockoff, Icicle Crash, Poison Jab, Low Kick. Revenges a lot of his team, so that is definitely nice. And let's go right on into this game. So as you can see, he has brought his Lando I, his Marshtomp, his Delmice, Tapu Fini, Mew, and Infernape. So I did mock versus my buddy Adam the Bee's Knees, and he brought a similar team, but he did not bring Lando. He had brought Pidgeot instead, and he didn't bring the Delmice before. I can't remember what he brought, but I digress. So in this matchup, the Blastoise leads off pretty well versus 5 out of the 6 members of his team. Adam brought Licky Licky. He brought like a Curse Licky Licky, which is definitely a problem. That's part of the reason I decided to put the Blastoise on, because Aura Sphere does a lot to a Spadef Licky Licky. But Blastoise leads off really well versus like 5 of the 6 bonds on his team. It doesn't lead that great versus Delmice, I guess, so maybe it's only 4. So I decided that I want to lead with it, and if I can get the opportunity to Mega Evolve very early, I will do that. I'm going to try and go through this game pretty quickly because it's sort of long. But he does lead off with his Finny, which is obviously not great for my Blastoise, and I don't have awesome responses to this Finny on my team. I don't have Decidueye or anything like that. So I go into my Sylveon, and I do take a Nature's Madness, which is not great for me. And I just go for a Wish, and he goes into his Delmice. So it's interesting that this thing is his primary response to Sylveon, and I'll learn why that is in a little bit. I switch into my Goodra, and I'll heal it up with the Wish. Delmice shows the HP Ice, which is really interesting for my Lando. Maybe it was a different Hidden Power, but I can't imagine why it'd be anything besides Hidden Power Ice. Goes into Mew, and I am worried about this being a setup set, so I just immediately go for the Dragon Tail on this Mew. And as you can see, it's going to be able to phase it out. And Infernape comes in, and I don't have, Infernape's definitely a scary mon for me, so I go into my Victini, which is my check, and it's going to take very little from that U-turn. It's actually going to do more in Rocky Helmet Recoil, which is great for me. Lano comes in, and this mon is definitely a problem for me. I switch in my Blastoise, and I take 48% from the EQ. I actually miscalced this. I thought this was banded damage, and it's not because I had the wrong Blastoise in the calcs. Like, I imported the set for regular Blastoise to determine the calc, but I just somehow misinterpreted it and thought that this was banded, which is not good for me. So on this turn, I go hard Lando as he switches out. Like, this also sort of suggests to me that he might be choiced. And I bring my Lando, and I can just go for a U-turn here. It doesn't necessarily reveal that I'm Scarf, but I don't think U-turn on a lot of other sets makes sense. And he just goes for a Surf, and my Goodra obviously takes that quite easily. I'm going to go for the Power Whip as he brings in his Mew, which I really cannot threaten. And again, I don't want this thing setting up, but I'm just going to switch on out into my Lando, because I think there's either a chance that he roosts or he switches out. And I can, potentially threaten the Dark-type move on this thing, or just go for U-turn. And a U-turn is what I go for. Hits the Finny. And I am going to go into my Sylveon this time and just fire up a Hyper Voice. Like, I need to break through this Finny somehow. This thing is a real problem for my team. Lucky for me, he does go for Taunt, expecting my Wish, so I'm able to hit him with that Hyper Voice for free, which is good. And I do go for it again. Delmice switches in, and it does 31%, which reveals that this is a Max Spadef Assault Vest Delmice, which is definitely annoying, because I am going to have trouble breaking through it, because I'm not packing like an offensive Victini or anything like that. And this thing, just because of its high base attack stat, is able to still do good damage to a lot of my team. But it makes sense. This is his best way of dealing with Blastoise, because his team does suffer a little bit versus it otherwise. Of course, the Tapu Fini being the main exception. And then, the Delmice can deal well with things like Goodra, and it does take pretty little from this Hyper Voice. I wish I was Specs. Specs would have been really nice in this situation, but I really wanted the ability to go for Wish and switch on moves and stuff. So I don't want to stay in versus this thing, and I can't go for Baton Pass because I am locked in. He goes for a Shadow Claw versus my Victini. Like, I didn't have another real great switch in, but I knew that because he took so little from Hyper Voice that he couldn't have any investment on this thing, and that even if he went for Shadow Claw, it wouldn't do a ton, and I could potentially threaten it out with Blue Flare. And it would also take some Rocky Helmet damage in return. I should have gone for the Energy Ball here, just because the switch into Finny was really obvious, but I did not make that play. The Energy Ball would have been a 2-hit KO, which would have been really nice. But now I'm going to switch into my Sylveon, just because I don't think it can threaten me all that much. And he goes into the Mew. I know that this thing is probably going to set up Calm Minds. I don't really have a counterplay to it. So I'm just going to Wish, go into my Goodra, and then I'm going to try and Dragon Tail it out. He goes for Psyshock, and I get back up to full. I think actually this turn I go for Power Whip, because I was expecting his Tapu Fini switch in. Because I'd already shown the Dragon Tail, I thought it was really obvious, and I thought he might go into the Finny again. And getting damage on that Finny is going to be really nice for a lot of my team. Really frees up Blastoise to apply pressure and things like that. So I didn't want him to come in on my obvious Dragon Tail. Stinks, of course, that I missed the Power Whip. But I'm definitely forced to go for Dragon Tail now on this turn. I went for that move as well, because I knew that he wouldn't be able to 2-hit KO me with the Psyshock, so I'd be able to phase him out pretty much no matter what. And I didn't think that he was going to stay in with his Marshtomp there, so I go for a second Dragon Tail, get off some damage. Having that little bit of chip from the Power Whip would have been nice for later. But now he's at 67% instead of probably around 47. But now Infernape comes out, and I definitely am scared out by this thing. I go into my Victini again, if I'm not mistaken. No, I go to my Lando this time. I go into Lando because I figure he might go for a potentially Earthquake on my Victini switch in, and it'd be nice to dodge that. The way that he's playing it does indicate that it's Choice Scarf, so that's something that I have to keep in mind. Switching in Lando on Infernape is a little treacherous because he could be packing HP Ice, but he does seem to be max attack, and he pretty much has to be max speed in order to speed tie with Cobalion. So if he does have HP Ice, he's not going to be very invested, and I can live from the range of HP that I'm at, which is nice. I go into my Lando, like I said, and he brings in his Marshtomp. I think this thing is probably just going to set up rocks, but in any case, I'm not going to stay in here and try and take a move here. I go for U-turn. It does 45%. So this is an uninvested, non-Eviolite Marshtomp. So I still am like waiting to hear the story behind this thing. But I obviously do tremendous damage to this. As dumb as it sounds, I don't really have a switch in. So I'm just going to end up sacking my Goodra because it's sort of not that helpful versus a lot of his team. He has the Assault Vest Delmice, which I can't break. Marshtomp, I don't really need help checking. And Tapu Fini, I can't really beat. And I'm not even sure if... I don't know if he ever left in his Tapu Fini on me. I'm just trying to figure out if I outsped or not. I put enough speed on it. Oops. Sorry, guys. I put enough speed to outspeed a non-speed invested Fini, but I doubt that he was 0 speed. But I digress. Because he's not Eviolite and because he's not bulk invested, I can go into Weavile and I can kill with Knockoff, which is no problem. And it's now 5-5. He was Focus Sash is what it was, so I actually didn't notice that until just this moment. Nape comes in, and Nape is really scary once again, so now I go into my Victini, thinking he's either going to go for U-turn or potentially show the HP Ice, since I did just show the Lando as a switch in. Having those two is fairly nice. And he goes into Lando. Again, I think that he's Choice Scarfed, and I'm weary of going into Lando on a potential HP Ice. So I stay in here, and he actually reveals to be Power Herb Fly. So definitely a weird play on my end to stay in, but it's pretty much because I wanted just the opportunity to go into Lando. Lucky for me, because I have so much investment, I can actually live this. And let me quickly switch to the other screen here, because I want to see if I go to Victini. This is my set here, and I go to Landorus. That is 252 with Fly. So he actually needed like a max roll to kill. He did, let me go back to this guy. He did 31%. So it was actually a roll in my favor to live, which is hilarious, assuming that he was not adamant. Like, he pretty much has to be Jolly to guaranteed outspeed Victini, of course. So that's hilarious that I lived that. And I'm able to get really good chip damage off with this blue flare. It actually puts it in range of U-turn from my own Lando, which is excellent. So really good for me. Weavile can come in and it clicks knockoff and gets a kill. And he is going to elect to sap his Tapu Fini, which I guess makes sense. Like, I guess this is a relatively good switch into something like Victini, and without that, it doesn't really do anything. It does deal with my Blastoise, of course. But with that dead, now he can easily go into Infernape, and I have to choose a sack. I think, in retrospect, I should have gone into Sylveon, but I actually go into Blastoise, and he's going to be able to U-turn into his Lando, and the Lando is going to kill me with the Earthquake. And now I can go into my own Lando, go for my own U-turn, and get to see what he's going to do. Most likely, like, I kind of expected him to sack this, but he actually goes into his Delmice, which is a free switch into my Weavile for me. Like, I guess I could have gone Sylveon, maybe that would have been better, but it's to me, it's like 6 one way, half a dozen the other. If I go into Sylveon, he goes into Infernape, and he clicks Flare Blitz. If I go into Weavile, he goes into Infernape, and he clicks Flare Blitz. So not a great deal for me, one way or the other. But I am just going to go for knockoff and kill this thing, which is good. So 3-3, looking potentially winnable, but I'm not feeling good just because this Infernape is looking more and more unstoppable. He goes for the U-turn with his Infernape on my Sylveon switch, and he goes into Lando. He's going to get another Earthquake kill. Like, if at any point here I had gone into Lando and, predicted that, maybe we would be in a different situation. But I am just going to go for U-turn, finally kill the Lando. It's 2-2. It is very close. And I'm going to go into my Weavile as he goes into his Infernape. I definitely don't want to stay in here, because my Weavile is potentially pretty important. And he just goes for U-turn, and he goes into his Mew. So I'm going to be able to U-turn here. These next couple turns are definitely pretty pivotal, and as you guys might expect, it really dictates the way the match plays out. He makes a nice read and predicts my U-turn and goes into his Nape because I'm forced to go into Weavile since I have no other Mons. And then I have to go right back on into my Lando. I do get off the Intimidate. And he goes for a Gunk Shot. This I don't understand. I think he mentioned, like, we were in call for a little bit after the game. He mentioned that he did want to try and get a poison on me, which would have been nice, sure. But I think he could have just gone for Flare Blitz and practically 2 KO'd. Or put himself in a position where his Mew could potentially win. I'm really expecting his set on Mew to be, now that he's shown Calm Mind, I'm really expecting Psyshock and Vacuum Wave, because that hits pretty much the entirety of my team. There's nothing, I guess Victini walls that. But Victini can't break a Calm Mind Mew, especially with the set that I have. Like, if I was a Choice Banded Victini, then obviously I could break it. But, he goes for Gunk Shot, and I do dodge. And I'm not sure if he's going to be keeping this Infernape in or not. But he just goes for Gunk Shot, misses again, and I go for a U-turn. Go into my Weavile. Now that the Infernape is -1, I could actually live a Gunk Shot if he lands it. And I could kill him with any move, basically. Like, probably Poison Jab is what I would go for. But, I guess I'm playing it safe. And go for U-turn again. He did land the poison that time, which is really annoying. I'm going to speed this up because we kind of played this game for a little while. And, I don't want to click U-turn and give his Mew a free turn, basically. That's what I'm trying to avoid here. I can play this on normal speed. Basically, because I think that's his Mew set, I just need to get U-turn chip on him. U-turn does like 35% or so. Get in the Weavile. If I can get off a knockoff, great. But I just really need to keep him in range of a potential explosion. So around 60% HP is where I need him. So I want to keep my Lando around for at least that long so I can get the U-turn off, sack my Weavile on the Vacuum Wave, and then kill it with Explosion. Because he doesn't really know what I have on this Lando besides U-turn. And he must assume Earthquake, Stone Edge to hit his Pidgeot, and the last move is sort of up in the air. So I do finally go for a U-turn and bring in my Weavile, and my Weavile should kill now. I'm pretty sure that's what's happening. So, we do finally take that out. So, victory is within our grasp, but I'm again really fearing the Vacuum Wave. But as it turns out, he actually doesn't have Vacuum Wave. So if I just stay here and click Knockoff, I do win the game, which is pretty unfortunate. But he is going to go for Roost as I switch on out into my Landorus, because I'm thinking the only way that I can kill this thing is potentially getting it within range with the Explosion. But he does go for Roost and not the Vacuum Wave, so I should be starting to suspect that he doesn't have it, and so I start sort of trying to play around it. But he's just continuing to Roost, and basically, like, he can win the game by just clicking Roost repeatedly, because my Landorus is eventually going to die to Poison, and my Weavile is going to die to all of the Life Orb recoil. And I do get it in here as he goes for another Roost, and I think there's one more turn of me pivoting back into the Landorus. No, I do go for a knockoff here. So I do 85%, which is like an absolute max roll, by the way. I think with his spread, it was like 77% min. But I didn't know exactly what his spread was at this point. I thought he was just sort of max, but he was like 164 with the Bold Nature, which does actually make a big difference in the grand scheme. But basically, like, if I had just stayed in here and repeatedly spammed knockoff, like on this turn, he's going to be able to Roost, get himself up to 65%. I'm thinking just if he is max, I'd do like 47% to like 57%. So depending upon the exact rolls, I might get him within range of the Earthquake. Sorry, the Explosion, not the Earthquake. But I do like 58 to 65 with my explosion to the spread that he does have. I think I do like 54 to I'm thinking I do like 54 to something. I can quickly look by switching back to this screen, clicking Landorus, and going to my explosion. So if he's max, I'm thinking I do 54 to 64. But his actual spread was 164. So I just need to get him in this range in order for me to potentially kill. And my Weavile, as you can see here, does 50 to 59. So he's at let me pivot back to here. He is at 65% now. So as long as I continue to spam knockoff, at best he remains at 65% because I get 2 min rolls, and he is still within potential range of my explosion. But because the roll is very likely in my favor to do more than 50%, then I could potentially get this thing to around 60% or so, which is kind of what I've been quoting as like the good benchmark for killing Mew. And then kill it out with the explosion. We would get a 0-0 win. Obviously, that's all really easy to figure out in retrospect. But because I wasn't sure what his spread was in the game, I didn't think that clicking knockoff, it could have potentially led to victory. I didn't know if it would be guaranteed lead me to victory. So, is it a choke or not? I don't know. Just because I didn't have all the information, I don't think it was necessarily a choke. Obviously now, I know that it was a mistake. Clicking knockoff was correct because, as you guys can see, let me just start the battle again. I'm going to end up pivoting around this thing, and I don't get it at a point where I can either kill it with my own knockoff or with my explosion. There's nothing that I can do. I go for the explosion here, and it does a tremendous amount. It does 68. So I got another max roll, which is cool. But he can just roost, and I go into my Weavile. And my best play actually here is going for Icicle Crash. I don't go for that. Instead, I go for knockoff, I guess maybe trying to land a crit. But if I got a flinch with Icicle Crash, I could kill the next turn with knockoff. So we do end up taking a 1-0 loss. And we could have played it differently, like I just explained. But I don't have that many regrets about that end game. Obviously, I wish I could have won, but it is what it is. It's just sticky now because we are 5-6 going into the final week of UBC, and not only do we need to win to make playoffs, but we need some help. We need either Jonah or Nick to lose their game, and if we do that, then we get in because we've got a nice differential and we'll be tied with them in record. But it sucks to be in this situation and not be sort of in control of my own destiny. So we might miss playoffs again, even if we get a 6-6 record like we did last season. And it's additionally frustrating because there are some opponents that I've played in this season who handed out forfeit losses to other of my opponents. So, if I if I hadn't lost those games, or if I had gotten the forfeit win like they did, then I would obviously be in a great position. But there's nothing I can do about that. That just is, I just complain about that. Just whining. But it is what it is, and we're just gonna try and take a W in our last week. And all things considered, ignoring all the playoff scenarios and things like that, I'm happy that I could bring it to a close 1-0 with Turk. He's a pretty talented battler. He just came in 3rd place in Summer Showdown from the Token Minorities tournament. Service. I don't know what you call their tournament series. I guess it's more accurate. And I don't know that he spent a ton of time prepping for this battle. The Mew set that he brought just gets destroyed by Weavile. I guess he kind of overlooked that, but he otherwise brought some pretty nice sets, except for that Marshtomp. I don't know what the hell is going on with that Marshtomp. So anyway, just to play it close with him does make me feel good. And we'll just do our best the next time. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you check out the channel for other gaming Pokemon content. And until the next time, I'll see you guys later.